So we're now going to put the embosser back together. So before you do, just check and ensure that your bottom push rods are in and that you've greased it on both sides, and you have. So you then take your lower beam, again it says lower on the beam itself, and again the lower writing is always on the side of the power supply. So then you push this down, it should slide right in. Then you get your lower paper shoe. And again, lower is written on the shoe facing the power supply. So you will put that on. But remember, before you put it on, to put the rubber springs. And you see, it's hard to forget it because it has the cutout in the pin guide. So you'll put the 4 springs back in. 4 on each side. Okay, so once that's in, you'll then see those will line up in here as well. So when you put it on, just make sure that everything lines up. So when you're putting it on, you'll see that you can get caught up. Just make sure that it slides into place like that, and ensure that these metal rods go into this bearing here. You will then take the 2 blue springs that you took out earlier, put those right back in there, and now you put the upper paper shoe on. So you'll see upper is written on there as well. This will also slide in, and just make sure that the spring slides in. You can test it by going like that. Just make sure that it's in the groove. You will then take your 8 adapron springs, put those back in. The green springs that you took off earlier, you'll put those back in on each side. Right there. And then lastly, you'll put the upper beam on, and again, upper written on it, and it's facing the side of the power supply. And you will just slide it on, make sure everything goes in, and you can see when I tested it, just use your hand to make sure that everything is in its right spot. Check the springs. And lastly, you'll put the main shaft back on. So again, ensure that your push rods haven't come out, that they are in, that they are greased, and then you just slide it right back onto the embosser. So and then lastly, we will now button the embosser up by putting these 4 screws back in. And tightening it up. And again, recommend tightening one side. Don't tighten it completely, but just tighten it where you feel a little tension, and then go to the opposite side. Tension, then go to this side. are in, then you can go ahead and tighten them up tight. Belt back on. So again, if it's a 200, 300, 400, 600, 650, the actual pulleys might be a bit different in location, but it's the same process. You'll put the belt on here. And then this is probably the biggest thing you'll have to focus on is if you look at the end of each gear, you'll see an arrow. There's an arrow here and an arrow here. When you tighten this belt, both arrows have to be facing the same way. So as if you can see here, right now this one's pointing at about 11 o'clock. So you'll have to move the belt over slightly and readjust. So now I adjusted the 2 teeth or so on the belt. You can see that both arrows are pointing directly at each other. If they happen to be off like this, the embosser will not print correctly. So they have to be facing each other. Once they are facing each other, lift this up with as much pressure as you can put behind it. So you want to make sure that the belt is tight. So there it is, tight, and then you will tighten this up. So you want to check, just make sure that it's tight, and it is. And then you will tighten. Okay, so now the main frame of the embosser is back together. Okay, so now that the main frame of the embosser is back together, workings, if you have a 400, 600, 650, remember it has this support here for the wiring. So as in video 1, we removed it, now you just put these screws back in. Ensure that they are tight.